Baltimore Ravens versus Pittsburgh Steelers reaction. The Ravens versus Steelers instant reaction. Look, I don't care how many people are on the reserve list or the deactivation list or COVID list or whatever you want to call it. This is a division matchup. The Baltimore Ravens coming into this game at 6-4, you knew even the backup players and the reserves and all that stuff were going to give Pittsburgh a good shot. As it stood, I was going to take the Ravens in the points anyway. As the week wore on, I was still going to take the Ravens in the points. Now, for the most part, I probably shouldn't have won that game. That touchdown at the end of the game there was unexcusable. I'm going to talk about that in just a bit. The Ravens ended up playing a lot better than I think a lot of people thought they would outside of this rivalry. But this rivalry matchup, I thought it was just going to be a close regardless if they played. My big question is whether or not they were going to play this game. Now, let me talk about that touchdown, the Ravens touchdown that McSorley threw. To me, I could be wrong on this. I think it was cover 2. So when that cornerback left his man to go up and take the crosser underneath him, I mean, that's a play design. That is what he was supposed to do. McSorley throwing into that window, it was a nice throw, but really the problem was the safety just took a really nasty, stupid angle. It reminded me of that Minnesota Vikings Stephon Diggs miracle play against the New Orleans Saints a few years ago in the playoffs. It was basically the exact same thing. The safety missed it. The cornerback, I think, made his play. Now, there was a guy covering the underneath route, taking him across. So that the defensive back left to take, he was covered, so he didn't have to do that. So it probably looked a little bit worse for that cornerback. But I think that safety really took a nasty angle on that. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I come on these reactions and I'm always saying, gosh, I wish they would run the ball late. They would run the ball late and all that stuff. And they did ultimately, run out the clock. I'm going to talk about that controversial first down in just a little bit too. But I'm not going to bang on the Steelers. The Ravens, even if they're playing against reserves or a thinned-out Ravens team, I mean, they're just so good. So I have no problem with the Steelers getting rid of the ball quickly. Deontay Johnson, once again, if you're watching this, and I do a lot of reactions to these Steelers games, a key drop, I think, in the second to last drive. He continues to do it. And I also noticed Chase Claypool, and this is just a nitpick, but he falls backwards a lot instead of falling forward. Maybe that's a rookie thing, but he's a physical specimen. Fall forward. I think he's trying to do a little bit too much. Just take what the defense gives you. Sometimes the best thing to do is just to dive forward and get that extra yard and a half, 2 yards. Now, as for, I know Ravens fans, you're a little ticked off, with the run play at the end there. Did he get that first down? In my opinion, no, he did not get the first down. But they called it a first down on the field. I would not have overturned it. It was too close. When you get into a pile and the guy's kind of lunging forward, the NFL, they just never, even Al Riveron, the worst head of NFL officiating ever, even he's pretty consistent with that. When the call is that close on the field, they're not going to overturn that. So I think it was the right call to not overturn it. I think it was the wrong call to give them the first down, but it is what it is. Let me talk about the Ravens a little bit. They fall to 6-5. I still think they're a playoff team. Let me read you the schedule for the rest of the year for them. The Dallas Cowboys, that is a little bit of a trap game, but most of the Ravens, I think, will be back next Tuesday to play this game out. I believe that the Ravens will win that game. They will go to then 7-5. They play the Browns. I think they will beat the Browns. They'll go to 8-5. They play the Jaguars, host them at home. I believe they go to 9-5. They play the Giants, who, although I think the Giants are playing the best football they have played all season, I do not think they can beat the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Ravens go to 10-5. Then they close the season with the Bengals. I believe the Ravens go 11-5, even if you give them one of these losses. I think worst case for the Ravens, they're 10-6. I think they're in. The schedule, the toughest part of their schedule is behind them. They'll even come into the playoffs with a little bit more momentum, a little bit more juice, a little bit more confidence, and that's important going into the postseason. So the Steelers now 11-0. Let me read you their remaining schedule. They host the Washington football team. Look, the Washington football team is playing their best football of the season, but in terms of matchups, this is just a nightmare for Washington. Pittsburgh will win that running away. Playing the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Buffalo Bills are at home in that game. I think the Bills match up pretty well with the Steelers. I think that's going to be whoever, it's just going to be a little bit more of a shootout. We'll see if the Steelers can force some turnovers. I think that comes down to which quarterback takes care of the ball more. I think that one's going to be a close one for me. Then the Pittsburgh Steelers go on the road to the Bengals. I do believe they win that game. Then they host the Indianapolis Colts, although I think that's a nice matchup. I really think that the way the Steelers play their offensive game caters to more of a win. I think the Colts are better against teams that have to run to survive and they shut down the run. The Steelers, I mean, they'll play a whole game without running much, and I think they did one of those today. So I do think that they'll beat the Colts. And then at the end of the season, they are on the road versus the Cleveland Browns. Now, all things being equal, they would win that game. If they have the number one seed locked up by that point, we'll see if Kansas City can hold serve throughout their season as well. But let's just say, for example, the Buffalo Bills lose that game. They lose the game to the Buffalo Bills. The Steelers will finish out and they'll win everything else. I think worst case for Pittsburgh here, well, I guess absolute worst case is 2 losses. I think more realistically it's 1 loss. But it also wouldn't shock me to see them go undefeated in the regular season. So we're looking at a Steelers versus Chiefs showdown. But, if I'm the Steelers, I still don't want to see a divisional opponent like specifically the Baltimore Ravens. I wouldn't care much about seeing the Cleveland Browns. Now, the Baltimore Ravens, moving on from Robert Griffen III to Trace McSorley, I don't know how I feel about that. McSorley got the touchdown. I think it was a little bit of luck, but hey, credit the throw because it was in the window where it had to be. The safety overran, took the bad angle, and then Brown, made them pay and got in the end zone. The drive where Robert Griffen III left, he had a guy deep. I think it was Brown again. Had him deep, missed him, but he also had a guy in his face mask, a second and a half off the snap. So I don't know that I would have gone to McSorley, but again, you're really splitting hairs here. I don't know that Robert Griffen would have won the game either. Griffen gives you 7 of 12 passing, 33 yards and a pick. That's nothing to write home about. 7 carries, 68 yards, no touchdown. Justice Hill gives you 9 for 35. Trace McSorley gives you 3 for 16 and just that little, 2-drive little thing that he did. And then Gus Edwards gets you a touchdown, but only 10 yards on 9 carries. Marquise Brown, 4 catches, 85 yards and a touchdown. Obviously, that big one there. Devin Duvernay gives you 3 catches, 20 yards. Justice Hill, 2 catches, 5 yards. Really, this was about the Baltimore Ravens defense. They did a really, really solid job. RG3 couldn't get it done. I found myself rooting for him. I didn't really like him, and I was a Washington fan when he came into the league. I have since left the Washington football team. I do not like Dan Snyder. It wasn't because of the name change or anything like that. I left him before that. I can't stand Dan Snyder and the way he coddled RG3. I think Dan Snyder ruined RG3's career. But I'm kind of rooting for him. He's down and out. The backup guy, was sad to see him getting taken out, but it is what it is. The Pittsburgh Steelers are not an easy defense to play against, even though I know RG3 beat them last season. Ben Roethlisberger, 36 of 51 passing attempts. Yikes. 266 yards, a touchdown and an interception. Benny Snell, 16 carries, 60 yards, 3.8 yards per carry against the Baltimore Ravens defense. That's really good. Congratulations to Benny Snell. McFarland only gives you 3 carries for 9 yards. The passing game, on those 51 attempts, who got the catches? Eric Ebron gives you 7 catches, 54 yards. Deontay Johnson gives you 8 receptions, 46 yards. Chase Claypool, 6 receptions, 52 yards. Juju Smith-Schuster was the backbreaker there. As is usual, I mean, he doesn't give you the crazy stats, but when you got to have it, Juju gets in. He plays a little bit more physical, as they were talking about today. Gets into the end zone there. Towards the end of the game, he's the one that gave them their last touchdown of the game. James Washington, 2 receptions, 19 yards, and I believe he had the game clincher, or almost the game clincher. That ball, I'm going to tell you, I don't think Ben Roethlisberger saw the safety there, but it worked out. I mean, it was just a sea of hands, ended up in James Washington's, if I'm remembering correctly, hands at the end of the game there. And Pittsburgh Steelers, man, 11-0. Congratulations. Well-earned victory. And divisional opponents, even when you have to play a bunch of backups, not the easiest thing in the world. Respect to Baltimore. Baltimore will be in the playoffs. I'm telling you, once again, let me read you the schedule once again. For Baltimore, they're 6-5. They have the Cowboys, the Browns, the Jaguars, the Giants, and the Bengals. They're 11-5 or 10-6. Everyone, they will be in the playoffs. Stop freaking out. The worst, their schedule is now behind them, and they're going to come out with a chip on their shoulder, especially after that game. So, well fought game. Congratulations, Ravens fans. Comment below. Tell me what you think, especially about that last play with the the first down that the officials gave them. Pittsburgh, what do you think about that blown coverage and the touchdown from Marquise Brown? And who scares you the most on your schedule moving forward? Once again, I'll read you the list. It's the Washington football team. They're on the road against Buffalo. They're on the road against the Bengals. They're home against Indianapolis, which is a big deal, I think. And then they're on the road Week 17 against the Browns. The Browns might need that for playoff positioning, and the Steelers might not need it at all. So they might be resting starters. I don't know. And also, Steelers fans, if they have the first seed locked up, do you want them to play their starters and go for the undefeated season? Would you do it? I personally would. If I was a Steelers fan, I would want them to go for it. So there you go. There's my reaction video. Please like, comment, subscribe. We'll catch you on another one soon.